Welcome in, everybody, to Pro Football Enterprises. I am Ben Parker, and that is Shane Ratliff. We are continuing to work our way through a lot of prospects. We have watched so much tape, and we have talked in depth. We like having two or three guys on to talk about these players because we don't always see them the same, but that's good. You don't want to just present one-sided views or propaganda. You want people that have studied and may have the same opinions or different opinions, but you want that. So if you're watching, that's an advantage that we offer. Tonight is Kevin KC Concepcion from Texas A&M, and before that, NC State. I'll set the table with the numbers, and then we'll get Shane's opinions to start off. Height, 5'11", weight, 196. I'm going to go through 3 years worth of numbers just to show you all the difference. 23 was a big year, 71 catches, over 800 receiving yards, 11.8 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. There was a drop off in 24, 53 catches, 460 yards, 8.7 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. He moves to Texas A&M, and you'll see the numbers go right back up, pretty much across the board, not quite, but pretty much. 61 catches, over 900 yards receiving, 15.1 yards per catch, 9 touchdowns. That's a lot of numbers. Now for the real stuff, the stuff that Shane and I watch. Let's get to it. Shane.
Well, Ben, the one thing that jumped out to me about KC Concepcion, like you said, there's North Carolina State, there's the first year at Texas A&M, and then there's this year at Texas A&M. Each of those films is going to give you a little insight into what he is. Uh, but after going to Texas A&M, the player comp that fit the most to me is Dante Hall. So I know Kansas City fans are going to enjoy that kind of old school thing, but
Yeah.
like KC Concepcion sinks his hips, absolutely flies out of breaks. Uh, he's got burst, twitchy, whatever you want to call it. He has all that. He's the modern slot. For someone his size, I thought in the film, surprisingly physical. Um, on my mind, great return specialist, did a really great job against zones. And then I have two kind of things that I had a really odd dichotomy about this is that for contested catches, he does an amazing job. If you put him up and he's got to beat a defender, he does a great job. Now, if he's open in the flat and you throw him the ball, his hands scare me. For a receiver as rated as high as he is, he's had 20 drops, somewhere in the range of like 186 to 195 catches. Um, he's always going to be knocked because of his size. There's nothing he can do that. He's not going to stretch out all of a sudden and become 6'3", and then he's, something else. What he does, I think he does very well. Uh, some things that I think are probably more Texas A&M than him. His route tree seems very elementary. That's pretty similar on their offense. I don't think it's just a him thing, but they didn't ask him to do a lot of different things on that. Um, Footwork is good. Uh, again, for a guy that's physical running the ball, doesn't seem to be a willing blocker and also has terrible technique when he's asked to do it. I saw some times where you thought that he really could have blown somebody up and really set a teammate up for a long play, and he just kind of missed on that. I think he did himself a couple of favors at the combine athletically. I also think he handled himself, which I think a lot of GMs will think that's even more important. Talked about the lifelong stuttering problem, handled that, as best as anyone could. Answered questions, took the heat for that, and shows that he's not afraid to be himself, and that's part of his upbringing, and that's who he is. So I think that's going to help him. I think though people are going to go back and watch this film, they're going to ask questions about the drops. They're going to ask questions about. There's sometimes this year where I felt like he was floating. Texas A&M could have used him, and he necessarily didn't step up in the biggest times when they did. Uh, but there's not a lot of guys in this draft that are going to be able to sink their hips, get out of a drive, move their feet, cut in through zones like this guy can. Uh, I think that's going to put him up near the top. Um, and I, I also think though this is a he's going to be a guy where it's going to need to be a match of his skill and really the team's play style because he there's very few teams I think in the NFL right now that he can fit in that's going to use him to max his abilities like they were in college at Texas A&M.
You and I see this guy very similar. I'm interested to see if it translates though to the same kind of a draft level grade range we might be looking at. So we'll see. But in terms of what we're seeing the same. I watched so much tape on Concepcion. Uh, I just couldn't stop watching. But I watched the. I'll tell everybody what I watched. The LSU game, the Notre Dame game, the South Carolina game, the Auburn game, and then the Miami playoff game. I tried to watch all of the top teams. So here we go. First of all, Yak, yards after catch. Excellent. Very dangerous. Not easy to bring down. Consistently racks up Yak. A lot of that is versus zone. But
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, if he gets the ball, he's probably going to add to that. Sometimes he's going to add to that a lot. Okay. So very, very important. The hands, fairly pedestrian, at times ugly. He can rip down tough catches, often juggles easy ones. Almost exactly what you said. Doesn't seem to have a great feel. A lot of the catches he did make looked like even if he didn't juggle them, it looked like he kind of club handed them. He did not look like he has a great feel for catching the ball. I saw he had a 10.3 drop rate, 10.3% drop rate in 25. So again, dropping a lot of the catches, but it makes the tough ones, you know. So I don't know how far I'm going to pull him down for that, but that is a problem. Okay, that cannot be ignored. Routes, lots of excellent crossing routes and fly routes. Does motions and jets very well. I didn't see any post or fade routes. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that Texas A&M didn't, so post and fade, I didn't see any. And he looked stiff and slow on out routes. Oddly enough, routes going up and out to the boundary, he kind of looks stiff and slow on that, as opposed to the in routes, the in crossers, where he just breaks them off, turning to the outside for some reason. Does not seem to be something he has a feel for. Speed, athleticism. First of all, he's a kick returner. Excellent burst, excellent acceleration, very good shake, cut, change of direction. Even in SEC play, there are times he looks like one of the best athletes on the field. Go to
Mm-hmm.
the LSU tape, who has athletes all over the place, and watch the tape of that game and the athleticism he showed in that game. It's tremendous. Goodness gracious. So love that. Versus zone, devastating, especially moving across the different zones. Just rips it to shreds. Very good at that. Prefers to move, not as effective at settling into holes. He'd rather be on the move, really, but he can at times settle in. It's just not his strong suit. Versus man, he is still difficult to guard. He has the speed to run past some guys, not everybody, but some of them. He can run past them. He's got physicality, surprisingly. You mentioned that, surprisingly physicality for his size. So that helps. He's got a good vertical jump and then the ability to snap off the end crossing routes. Those things combined make him difficult to guard in man as well. But zone is by far where you're going to catch a lot of the yak and see his best. He's still a handful in man coverage. I think I'll return to that later in the notes. Size, physicality. Good physicality for his size, but as usual, wingspan is a problem for a guy his size.
Mm-hmm.
Small catch radius. Quarterbacks have to be pretty spot on, and his quarterback wasn't. he he did not have an accurate quarterback his final year at A&M, but even so, they had to be pretty spot on to get the ball where he could catch it in his radius. That's always a problem with the smaller receivers, and you can see this. I thought this might be a problem at the NFL level, but you could see it on the Miami tape. Bigger cornerbacks with decent speed can push him around. They're not so slow that they're worried about him running past them, but they're bigger than he is and they can push him around. And you could see that on the Miami tape. And the NFL guys that are capable of doing it will do it every play. So that's a problem too. I got four more pieces here. Deep can win deep downfield at times, third level, but that's not how he's going to pay the bills. He's just not going to win a lot downfield deep. He can do it. That's not his specialty. That's really kind of his second offsetting weapon. Work over the middle is excellent. Beautiful work over the middle. Short crosser, semi-deep crossers, curl in. There, I don't remember which game it was. There is a tape of him running a deep crosser. It's second level. It takes a while for him to get there, but it's a beautiful piece of work. The quarterback catches him over on the left side. Beautiful deep crosser. The boundary work, almost non-existent. Really struggles at the boundary. They didn't ask him to do it much. When he did it, it wasn't much there to it, and that could make him predictable because people know he's not going to work the boundary, so that's either in or up. Basically, it's in or up, and so that can be a problem too. And then the blocking. The blocking was almost laughably absent at times. There were some plays where he was as much in his teammates' way as he was the defender's way. It's not every time. In fact, the Auburn tape of him blocking is actually decent. But generally speaking, you mentioned it, the technique is bad. The effort isn't great. It's not zero effort. I've seen less effort, but you expect a lot more. The blocking is bad in most cases, really not offering much there. They generally did not run the ball in his direction. Every once in a while, maybe a wide receiver screen, but they did not like to run the ball in his direction. They just knew that wasn't going to work out well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my notes on Concepcion. Shane, back to you. Where would you start looking at him, and any more thoughts you have on him?
Well, we've talked about it before too, Ben. The change in the kickoff game has kind of cut down on the bonus point that you used to get as a return specialist. I mean, he's still going to be dangerous on punt return, still dangerous in the kick return, but the NFL has changed that game to where being a specialist isn't as important anymore. Um, the concerns you have are the same concerns that I talked about as well. Um, the thing that most people talk about those inside receivers is that they always catch the ball and they always get out of their cuts. And like you said, if he's going inside, he looks way different than he does cutting to the outside. The height, the straightaway speed plays against him. Like you said, he's shifty. He's going to move around, but
Yeah,
he's not, sprint speed. He's not going to bust you and be able to
right.
outrun anybody on the outside like some of these other guys can. Um, the drops just worry me because it he truly at some points looks like a guy that was a super athlete that played running back, and all of a sudden they made him play wide receiver, and he was like, "Well, I'm just going to do what I can, and I'll catch the ball when I can." Um, and that's kind of the way that I saw him in a lot of these, like you said, a condensed route tree, drops that looked like concentration issues. Um, like I said, the thing for me is if I'm the Rams and I need somebody to take some heat off of Puka Nakua and play on the inside, I think he's great. If you're Kansas City, you're going to do something like that. I think he fits that. Uh, if you're the Buffalo Bills and you need somebody to stretch and be able to make these catches, I don't think he's your man. Uh, his numbers wise, I think he could be in the top 30. Um, for me though, he's going to be a late second round, third round guy because the drops are just too scary for me. And I saw him in a just like you said, Ben. They happen in games where he wasn't playing the top competition. They happen in games where he was playing the top competition. So
Yeah,
then that's when you start to get to where that's not just like a oops, that's a distinct trait, where and you don't want to be the position where you have to rely on your hands and then not have great hands. Um, the thing I didn't understand, you mentioned as well, contested catches. He's great at. When he has to fight over a defender to get the ball, he
yeah,
makes that catch. When you pop him a screen pass, he'll drop that ball and kick it down the field. Um, so like I said, that's where he gets the real drop on me. Talent wise, production wise, I think he's up there, but I think he's going to fall in this draft this year.
It's a great point. I've got a whole big board put together. He's still in the top, I think 25 for me, but I've considered for all the reasons you mentioned pulling him down. I just haven't made that move yet. So if we were sitting in a draft room trying to decide where we wanted to place him, first of all, it's got to be a team that needs somebody that does the kind of things he's good at. And he does several things well. So athleticism, good speed, production, all of that. And when you watch the LSU tape, you can easily see a first round kind of guy.
Hmm.
But dang it, when I turned on the Miami tape, that alone was enough to make me want to pull him down to the second round. When I start looking at the hands, especially the South Carolina game, for instance, the hands, great example of bad hands. That's enough to pull him out of the first round. And then the Notre Dame game too, in which yeah he made some plays, but also there were some disappearing acts too.
Hmm.
Um, you know, I I haven't yet pulled him off my top 25, but if we were sitting in a room and somebody said I don't want him to late second round, I wouldn't fight him on that either. I think he's got that kind of range depending on what you need and what you don't like that's important to you. So if you need a guy with reliable hands, this guy won't be there. This guy will be late second, early third, you know? And if you need a guy that can't be pushed around by bigger cornerbacks, this guy won't be your first round guy. He'll be sitting
Hmm.
late second, early third. So that's where I'm at on him. Still haven't pulled the trigger on that decision, but I'm not usually that indecisive. I did like a lot of the things I saw from Concepcion. The production, the athleticism, the repeated middle work is really good. I really like that, but there are limitations. You can't just put him everywhere. And NFL defenses will pick up on that. They'll figure out how to handle that. So, all right, final thought on Concepcion.
Uh, like I said, Ben, he's one of the guys that's dropping on my board right now. You said you hadn't made that push yet. The two games that stick out are two that you had already mentioned. So the defenses that had played him back to back years. So Notre Dame saw him first
Yeah,
game of the first year, saw him again this year.
yeah.
This year they out physicaled them. They put
Mm-hmm.
put somebody right on him, matched him up, push him around. Anytime we get a chance to get a second hit on him, make sure that he's on the ground. Miami, and I feel like that happened for all of Texas A&M. He's not the only one, but
Right,
Miami decided they want to be the bully that game, and he just ended up being one of the party.
right.
Everyone got out physical that game, but you're not going to get less physical in the NFL. There's also been such a movement in these last couple of years to have that hybrid safety nickel where because of the talent of these inside receivers, it's become more important for the defenses in the NFL to have this kind of Swiss Army knife player that they can match up against them. Now that makes Casey Concepcion more difficult because now there's guys that they're going to lock him up on him and you can
Yeah,
shut him down on the inside, especially if you know he's never going to go to the outside.
right.
I mean, you're going to box them and let them run into trouble. And if you're a quarterback that you got a small target and not great hands, that's interception city, and you're going to see it pretty quick.
Agreed. There's some predictability there, so we'll see where I actually end up with him on the big board. Again, a lot of good tape there. There's a lot of good things to like on Concepcion, and maybe we didn't mention that as much as some other places. There are a lot of things to like here, but there's concerns too. We are not here to pump up guys or tear them down. We're here to tell you what we saw, and this is what we saw on Concepcion. Shane, final word here. Tell everybody what you and Simon Short are doing and where they can find it.
So Simon and I are going to join up to discuss some offensive linemen, not only in the NFL but in the draft coming up. Uh, it's been a huge run for free agency on the offensive line market with trades and signings. And Simon reached out, a chance to get on with him to be one of the friends of Simon and Friends. And the last year, right around this time, Simon and I got along, and it turned into a 3 hour discussion about offensive line technique and where we can fit in and what you're looking for. So I can only imagine that tonight will be pretty exciting on the offensive line note. And it's always interesting that Simon sees things uh, sometimes quite differently from the way that I do, especially when it comes to some of the draft eligible guys. And so it's going to be fun to be able to talk to him and see where I rate up on those with the discussions that we've already had about some of these guys as well.
All right. And I tell everybody that's on the Simon and Friends podcast on Apple and Spotify, right?
That is correct.
Shane, thank you. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you have thoughts on Concepcion, maybe something we didn't bring up, which wouldn't be much. We brought up a lot, but maybe if there's something we didn't bring up, you want to add it to the comments for everybody to see, feel free to do so. Have a great one and goodbye.